Good morning, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn,
Here.
Commissioner Willis. Here. Commissioner Desmond is absent. Commissioner Anderson. Here. Commissioner Becker. Here. Commissioner White.
Present.
Commissioner McKenzie. Commissioner Mathis.
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Von Wilpert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Drake.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Vargas is absent. Alternate Commissioner McCann.
Present.
So there is a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. Vice Chair Willis, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Vice Chair Willis. I believe we have a couple of statements regarding commissioners participating remotely.
Yes, we do have 2 commissioners participating remotely under the Just Cause exception, which allows their participation remotely. We do have to announce the reason for it. It's under Just Cause for a contagious illness that prevents the commissioner from attending in person. And that is Commissioner Mathis and alternate Commissioner Drake. Both are participating remotely via Zoom.
Thank you. All right. Item 3 is our review of the agenda for this morning's meeting. Mr. Simons, is there anything that you'd like to touch on this morning?
No, thank you, Chair. The agenda as posted last week and circulated holds, so we are good to go.
Sounds good. All right, well, let's take non-agenda public comment. This provides an opportunity for anybody who would like to comment on something that is not on today's agenda, but is within the purview of LAFCO. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. Let's move to the consent items. Those are items 5A through 5I. Clerk, do we have any public comment on the consent items?
None.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent items? All right, very good. We have a motion from Commissioner Anderson and a second from Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the consent items? Seeing none, Clerk, please call the roll on the consent items.
Commissioner Whitburn.
Yes.
Commissioner Willis. Aye. Commissioner White.
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie. Commissioner Anderson.
All right.
Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
There's 7 in favor, 0 opposed, with 1 absent. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. That brings us to item 6A, the revised draft report on the municipal service review on the Oceanside region. Are there any commissioner disclosures of ex parte communication since our last meeting? Seeing none, we will ask staff to move forward and present the item.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just go ahead and briefly start us off on this item before I hand it over to Michaela Peters. So as commissioners will recall, we started this item back in June as part of your municipal service review program. This one is specific to the Oceanside region as defined by your staff. And keep in mind there are these 3 outcomes that are oriented whenever you do a municipal service review. And again, the reason to do the service review is in legislation. And first and foremost, you take the document at its end and you perform your parallel duty to update all of the affected agencies' spheres of influence as you see fit, okay? You also use the municipal service review in statute to inform any boundary changes that may be forthcoming over a 5-year period. And just as a placeholder, that's why sometimes we talk about special study areas and spheres. They're somewhat in step with that telegraphing tool. And then finally, Should the commission see fit, you also use the municipal service review and statute as your source tool and resource to initiate your own change of organization proposal specific to special districts, should you believe that to be the case. Not to say that protest proceedings wouldn't apply, but again, the service review has that power, if you will. So these are the three things that we use municipal service reviews for, explicit in statute. Now, just holistically, the commission also uses municipal service reviews as an informational tool. One of the reasons why LAFCO exists in the initial legislation is to provide information to the public to help them make informed decisions. So that's the context as to what will be all on our minds when we go through a municipal service review. And you prescribe policies that provide direction to staff to sync up a service review in a particular way, scope and scale, and Michaela's going to talk about that in a little bit. And I do want to make one correction. So Chair asked me during the agenda review if there were any changes. Well, there were no changes, but I failed to recognize right in front of me there was a supplemental piece of correspondence for this item that I think I'll address after Michaela does her presentation. So with that, Michaela, it is all yours.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Michaela Peters on behalf of staff. So as the executive officer referenced, the item involves returning to the public hearing opened in June involving LAFCO's scheduled municipal service review on the Oceanside region and its 3 local agencies that fall under the Commission's oversight. So these 3 local agencies being the City of Oceanside, the Oceanside Small Craft Harbor District, and the Morrow Hills Community Services District. So as the Commission will recall, in receiving the staff's presentation in June, several comments came forward from the City of Oceanside via their mayor and their city manager expressing concerns with the draft, including some of the key conclusions and recommendations within the executive summary. So Oceanside's comments culminated with the city asking and the commission ultimately agreeing to pause the MSR process to give the city time to digest and comment on the document. Staff was also asked to then return with the draft in August with or without changes. And that is where the commission left the topic in June. So as for today, we are returning with a revised report that hopefully better hits the mark. So the commission can then proceed with the formal review and comment period, and then eventually return with a final report for action at a future meeting. So as for the revised report itself, it is largely the same, but certainly contains some targeted changes based on the feedback received over the last month or so. And what I would like to do now is go ahead and cover the revised report in terms of what has remained the same and what has changed. So as for what has remained the same, all of the key premises of the MSR, which are up on the screen, remain, including the scope, which is the Oceanside region and its 2 special districts mentioned earlier. The scale of the MSR, so most but not all municipal services provided by each agency, and of course the informing years, so 2018 to 2022. Additionally, each of the standalone profiles remains mostly intact throughout each of the 7 subsections, with a few technical items revised or improved, which can all be found in red or blue in the agenda packet. And then it contains these 7 up here. And lastly, of course, the required MSR factors have all remained. And as for what has changed, those items on the screen will either be in red or have a red asterisk next to them. And so you can see, as you can see, the introduction to the MSR has remained, but we did go ahead and change number 2 and 3. We changed the language of these 2 to hopefully show the multiple factors influencing slower growth within the region, and this was a suggestion by the city. So as for our recommendations, can you go to the next one? So as for our recommendations, these first 8 shown up on the screen have remained intact, and I will go ahead and pause for you to take a closer look. Okay, and here are the remaining 10. So most of these go unchanged as well, except for our recommendation number 15. Morro Hills should revisit speed limit on Sleeping Indian Road. And we've added the sentence that notes the district should reassess their ability to retain a speed limit under the 85th percentile standard and under the new passage of AB 43. We've also added an additional recommendation, number 17 in red, which came up during a meeting with the Morro Hills Community Service District, who expressed their concern of a lack of traffic enforcement within the area. So LAFCO has suggested that we could help coordinate discussions between the CSD and the county sheriff, should they wish. So other than that, you'll notice we went through each section of the entire MSR after receiving feedback from the city and the respective districts, and provided fixes in or provided deeper analysis where necessary. And with that, I will go ahead and conclude my presentation and would like to defer to Keynes should he like to add anything else.
Thank you, Michaela. And again, thank you, Michaela, for picking up this study after Carol Ann left it in her good hands after departing LAFCO for a consulting position. So a couple of comments on my end. First, you do have a supplemental piece of correspondence from the city of Vista. It's on the dais, and I think copies are on the desk up front as well. And so one of the recommendations that we have for the commission is specific to the city of Oceanside and this idea of creating a special study area. So if the commission will recall, and perhaps, Michaela, do we still have that map of the special study area for Oceanside on the PowerPoint? If not, I can narrate it. Okay, so hopefully this map will show up on the screens in a second. So anytime we do a municipal service review, one of the factors, right, that the legislature wants the commission to get involved in is identifying any areas immediately adjacent to a city or special district that qualifies as a disadvantaged unincorporated community. And by way of our policies and the piggyback on statute, that means any area that's inhabited, right, 12 or more registered voters, and the median household income is 80% less than the average, okay? And the law prompts LAFCO, whether it be here in San Diego or up in San Francisco or Ventura, to consider opportunities within your power to help facilitate the expansion of core urban services, water, wastewater, fire protection, police protection. So, in this particular case, there's about 150 acres right outside the city of Oceanside's sphere of influence. It's reflected in the red-ish area, and it's kind of an area in between Oceanside's Shadow Hill area and the city of Vista. This area is already within the city of Vista's sphere of influence, and it's been in the city of Vista's sphere of influence probably for about 30 plus years. So the question to the commission that your staff is bringing forward to you is 30 years in the Vista sphere has not translated into an annexation. So in this opportunity, staff is suggesting, well, why don't we create a special study area to the Oceanside sphere to overlap this DUC, this disadvantaged unincorporated area, for two reasons. One is it signals to any developer who may want to do a project in this part of the world that you have an additional option, whether it's the baseline of working with the city of Vista or perhaps now working with the city of Oceanside. And then concurrently, and this may be what comes into play, the city of Vista very well may want to do a development and retain its land use control, but services may be, in particular wastewater, better accommodated by the city of Oceanside, given that's where it has some infrastructure. So under the law, in order for you to accommodate what would be an out-of-agency service arrangement for Oceanside to accommodate a Vista development in this area, you would need to have some kind of sphere allowance in order for you to sign off under state law. So this special study area would allow you to accommodate a potential out-of-service area down the line. And so what staff is proposing is that we do this special study area and see what happens over the next 5 years. The city of Vista has weighed in that, and I'll paraphrase that, they want to discuss this and they're open to the idea, but it's something that they are signaling that they want to go through formal channels to discuss, and with Oceanside as well. I think I'll defer to the city manager who's with us with Oceanside that they may prefer you not to create this special study area for their own reasons, which is understandable. But from LAFCO's perspective, this is a merited solution to an idea and an issue prompted by our bosses at the legislature. So that comment aside, I know that there are some other comments that you have in the Oceanside letter that is attached to the revised agenda report. Chair, as you see fit, because we do have two members from the city here, I would be happy to defer any comments on their letter, given I assume it may be also provided in public testimony in response should the chair see fit. So ultimately what we're asking the commission today is, do you believe that this revised document better meets the mark as a draft? And if you are good with us initiating the next step, which is to formally circulate the item for public review and comment, continue to work with the agencies, but then concurrently start working on a final document for action at your meeting in October. So that's the game plan. And again, we're ready to dive into the details as the chair sees fit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Thank you, Ms. Peters, for the presentation. All right, let's reopen the public hearing and take public comment on this item. We have two speakers here in person, and we will begin with Oceanside Mayor Esther Sanchez.
Good morning. The snapshot in time of our city has been misinterpreted by LAFCO staff, which has led to false assumptions and therefore inappropriate recommendations. The 2000s were absolutely not a time of slow growth, but about planning and building a walkable city with increased densities and heights in the downtown area where it made sense. This was a time of planning for the future, starting with approval of an 8-story timeshare on Pacific Street, leading to the establishment of 8 stories as maximum height in the downtown area, finally moving redevelopment forward for the first time in 30 years. Next, a hotel was built, an LCP requirement before the other 4 blocks of surface parking lots could be developed. The city's partnership with private development created the SALT project wrapped around public parking, replacing all parking of the 5 lots plus more. Unfortunately, the Great Recession hit, leading to city layoffs of over 100 employees, severely cutting back city services, coupled with a burst of the real estate bubble, led many to walk away from homes in Oceanside. Recovery was slow due to financial institutions, but something else happened. Young entrepreneurs began investing in businesses along Mission Avenue and Coast Highway, bringing innovative farm-to-table fare and sustainability to Oceanside. The growth of microbreweries also dominated the restaurant scene. The 2010 decade saw the transformation of the downtown to mid-sized buildings, mixed use with significant increases in housing units. Staff also developed a plan for up to 5,000 housing units along Coast Highway. Oceanside's plan to become a destination city came to life. There was, however, an increase of short-term vacation rentals that removed family homes out of the housing market. This situation was recently addressed specifically due to our city's affordable housing crisis, prohibiting short-term vacation rentals east of Coast Highway and capping them on the coast. Your projected capacity numbers for wastewater are incorrect, as the La Salina treatment plant is being decommissioned, transitioning into another pump station. The city's goal is to become 50% independent of the Water Authority and to lower costs to our ratepayers, made possible by our city's supply of groundwater from the Mission Basin. Part of our pure water process uses groundwater as a filter, pumping it back into the ground, mixing with our groundwater before using other filtering processes. This is a sensitive process, as we cannot pump in or out too much water, as at risk of creating a subsidence condition. Service requests for our fire department have tripled, but we are at the same levels of personnel. This is not sustainable. As to police, not within the study, saw a huge loss of police officers, both because of post-Black Lives Matters, but also as retires. This is also not sustainable. The rise of our homeless issues has the city spending up to $11 million a year, and yet the private sector has been reluctant to build the 10% on or off-site units, instead opting to pay the much lower in lieu fees. Projects under state density bonus laws that include unlimited number of waivers, including height, have all been approved under the state's by right laws. The city has no discretion to deny. The holdup on these continues to be financing, which the city has no control over. Finally, the North River Farms project that was referendum by the citizens of Oceanside was done so because it violated our land use laws. The city's official greenbelt in the South Morro Hills community has been to protect valuable farmland and open space, a specific goal of LAFCO. While the people won, the developers sued the city and residents. The city opted out of the lawsuit, leaving the residents, who ended up settling via compromise. We are updating our general plan for the first time in about 40 years. We are able to meet our RENA numbers, and our housing element has been certified by HCD. In sum, we are opposed to the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we'll hear from Jonathan Borrego.
I thought I was going to go
That I.
a lot of popped out.
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you, and I also want to also acknowledge the pause that you put in the process back in June, which allowed us some additional time to work with LAFCO staff in order to make some further refinements to the document. That said, as Keen mentioned, we did provide you with a comment letter dated July 26th, which is part of your agenda packet, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to review that. I just want to reiterate a point that the mayor made, which I think is still a fundamental issue that we have with the document, which is any sort of implication in the document that citizen opposition to development has been a factor in the city's slowing growth. As the mayor mentioned, the North River Farms project really was an aberration, a one-off, as a result of the citizens being upset over a land that was agriculturally zoned being rezoned to allow for planned development. But by and large, our citizenry is actually very supportive of development. As a matter of fact, we are in the process of a comprehensive general plan update. We're adding thousands of units along our transit corridors, and the community has actually embraced that plan with very little opposition whatsoever to that plan. So I think we're just very sensitive about any language in the document that implies that citizens have slowed growth or have been a factor in slowing growth. Again, the North River Farms really was a one-off project. I also want to mention that as far as recommendation number 1 goes, which Keen touched upon, which is channeling growth into Oceanside in the future. Again, our general plan does accommodate quite a bit of future growth as part of our update. But I do really think that in that recommendation, there should be some language in there added that any channeling of growth into Oceanside should be respectful of the general plan that we are currently working on, and that should really be the driving force. To that point, we do not anticipate nor plan for future development within the area that Keen mentioned, which is currently within Vista's sphere of influence. In discussions with their staff at our level, they have no interest, as Keen mentioned, in a reorganization of that sphere. We do expect significant growth in the future, but again, that area is channeled along our smart and sustainable corridors and not within the area that has been mentioned. And so we would continue to strongly object to any sort of a study that would shift that sphere from Vista to Oceanside. Even though it is a study, it will require us to dedicate significant resources to respond to that study. And quite frankly, given that both City and Vista and Oceanside at this juncture have expressed opposition to that, I would encourage you not to include that at this juncture. Neither city wants it at a staff level at least. And it's going to require a lot of resources on our parts to analyze any forthcoming recommendations. Finally, I do want to point out two things in my letter. I know I'm probably over my time here, but if you can grant me just another second here. There's two recommendations that I include at the end of my letter, which I really think the board should weigh in on. One is moving forward, and I've had several conversations with other city managers in the county because we do meet regularly. There really should be a refined process moving forward on these MSRs. And in creating, as I mentioned in my letter, a roadmap that can be shared with cities before you engage in this process. I think having a roadmap with clear milestones, clarification and timeframes, and also what documents we should be reviewing in that process would be really, really helpful and would have probably resulted in a much smoother process for us. Finally, I really also do believe that we should have the opportunity to review the entire draft document, including the recommendations. That's not a part of your process currently. I do understand LAFCO staff's reason for not sharing the entire document with us, including the recommendations. My understanding is there is a concern that if you include the recommendations in the draft that's reviewed by our staff, that we would somehow try and, I guess, manipulate those recommendations. I get it. But obviously, LAFCO is under no obligation to make any changes that we suggest. But I really do think it creates an additional point of friction in this process that could be avoided if we were able to review the entire document, including the recommendations in the draft form. And I know that many of my city manager colleagues feel the same way when I discussed this with them at our last meeting, last week, actually, as a matter of fact. So with that, again, I thank you for that. We do reserve the right to provide additional comment on the document, and we intend to do so during the 45-day review period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borrego. Clerk, do we have any public comment online?
Let me just check. No public comment online.
Thank you, Clerk. All right, let's open this up for commission discussion. Do we have any comments or questions among the commissioners in relation to this item?
So just to qualify, Vista and Oceanside are against the special study area. City can set up that way.
Oceanside formally, Vista staff is asking for more discussion with LAFCO staff.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes. Are we at the comment period?
Yes.
So thank you so much, City of Oceanside, for coming today. I think it helps really shape the discussion. And I think it's unfortunate that we have kind of created a little bit of a tension between LAFCO and the city, and I don't think that that was intentional. So I do agree that there could be some kind of a policy that could clarify the communication outreach or what Oceanside has talked about, a roadmap. I think the last thing we want to do is surprise a city when what we're trying to do is help them with helpful recommendations that you would like to follow. If we come out with a document that comes out of left field and is pitting two cities against each other, it sounds like Vista and Oceanside are both in agreement that one of the recommendations came out of left field and they're not in agreement with that. So I don't think that's the type of thing that we're trying to do here. I think if we have a little, I think Solana Beach, I'm a little sensitive. Solana Beach just went through this being kind of blindsided by the rail realignment. You might have seen that in the newspaper, where we are one of the parties that, we're not in the discussions unnecessarily. And so I think that would have just helped a lot if Oceanside would have been involved in the process from the beginning. And all the cities, I think, are going to appreciate that. So if there's some kind of policy or roadmap that we could look at, that would be helpful. I think that the language can be softened as to something about the housing in most cities has slowed since 2000. So I think it's easy to put in something like, for a number of reasons, housing has slowed, as opposed to just zeroing in on one of the options that the city feels defensive about. I don't think that serves anybody's purpose. And I personally do not like the language that says that LAFCO will direct growth in the region. I think that the cities, that is their purview. They have their general plan. They've got their HCD is approved, their housing plan. That's in their purview. I think that we can just, again, soften that to say that we recognize that there can be growth in the future. The city of Oceanside recognizes that, and we'll follow that plan that the city themselves have drawn up and had approved. And so I think that just softening this language just a little bit would be helpful for both sides. We all want the same thing. We all want we'd like a roadmap for the city in these type of decisions, but we can just put it in a different language, I think. I mean, we're all going for the same goal. So my recommendation is to certainly try to get some kind of a roadmap. We've got a lot of cities coming up that would appreciate that roadmap. And so I think that would be one of the helpful things. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Becker. Is there any further commissioner comment on this item? Commissioner McKenzie.
Quick question on the area in discussion, that 150 acres. You indicated that they have sewer from Oceanside. What are the other services and where are they coming from? Or is everybody on septic, or do they have a trunk line going through there? What?
The duck, the unincorporated area that we flagged, is on septic and/or groundwater, if any. I mean, there's probably some vacant lots there. Relative to what Oceanside has nearby, we are aware of a wastewater collector system nearby, but I couldn't speak to the others, which is why we would just designate it as a special study area.
Okay. Well, I agree with Commissioner Becker and with the city of Oceanside that with both Vista and Oceanside, happy with what is presently there, that it stay as being in the sphere. And really, if you got two cities that are going to be pitting against LAFCO because they don't want to change the sphere, that study area is going to be, maybe not timely, time wasted. And I also agree with both what the city manager said on LAFCO and being more open and communicative with the cities and with the special districts. I brought this up at the last meeting, and I was told, and I forget exactly what the exact wording was from our CEO as to why they wouldn't include the recommendations with this document. But I do believe that the MSRs, there needs to be ongoing communications, and that would eliminate a lot of consternation between LAFCO, the city, or the special district. And I think the recommendations, they really need to be, maybe not part of the MSR. Maybe they are a separate email. These are the recommendations, and let them review it and come up with, well, number 3, just that doesn't work. And then you can do your back and forth rather than in a public hearing, so that you do come into a public hearing with basically a majority of an agreement. And it sounds like we have a few areas here where we're not in agreement. So they're going to be responding in a public hearing, and then we're back to where we are now.
Thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. Mr. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. So first and foremost, I fully acknowledge, based on this experience and certainly my high opinion of City Manager Borrego, that we clearly should have done a better job in communicating some of these items. Part of the challenge here is your staff. I did not view these as being draconian or problematic recommendations. So therefore, I didn't flag them in advance. And I'm learning that, they were viewed differently than staff. On the topic of the duck, here's the challenge, Commission. Your constituency is the duck, not the agencies. And so that and I think it was a fair comment made by the city manager on the observation that neither city wants to deal with that duck. Well, that's how it became a duck, right? It's been excluded from the urban planning process. And so the commission is being asked by the legislature to help remedy that scenario, and you have a planning tool. And so staff is suggesting, well, you could use that planning tool to at least expand options for development in that area to eliminate the duck, which is the end goal as set by the legislature. So I don't know if we will get to a point where we will offer up a recommendation on the duck that either city will necessarily like. What we're trying to do is, though, not make it a leverage point for one or the other by simply saying you should be in Vista or you should be in Oceanside. What we're trying to do instead is just telling whoever may want to develop that, hey, however it can work out, we just want to see this duck be given urban level services. And however it can be worked out between the two land use authorities, LAFCO is going to be nimble. So at least that's the intent of staff. That's the intent of staff. So with that, I certainly will pledge my work with the City of Oceanside going forward. Oceanside Harbor, Small Craft Harbor District, and Morrow Hills CSD is also part of the study. And we'll do our best to address, and if not, at least document where there are differences of opinion. So with that, thank you, Chair, for the added time.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Is there any other commissioner comment? Commissioner Becker?
Well, I would just like to firm it up a little bit, and maybe my colleagues could tell me what they think about that, is getting a policy going forward for the cities. Is there any way to do that where this can be a smoother process? Are you opposed to putting that in any kind of form that cities can kind of look at? They can start getting their documents together or those type of things. I mean, I don't know how that process works, but we could probably come up with something that would ease this situation for future cities.
If agreeable with the commission, I can bring back at our next meeting policy L106, which is the current policy on how we go about preparing municipal service reviews. And I think we've been following that, but I think we can also adjust it per your real-time experience as you see fit. So if that is something...
Do you think that satisfies what the city manager was talking about, a roadmap? Or is there more things we could add to it that would...
Well, I think the core question will be, do you want staff to share the recommendations with the agencies before the commission sees them? I think that's where you're going to... That's the substantive question for the commission, that right now the policy allows discretion to your staff, and I have chosen not to share those determinations and recommendations beforehand in writing because, as City Manager Borrego said, I have in my 20-plus years been on an island. Once recommendations get out into the public, before the commission has gotten a chance to weigh in on it, that's a lonely feel for staff. And then you start hearing from commissioners saying, what the heck? And I have to wait till a Brown Act meeting to discuss it.
I think part of the problem also is not just the recommendations, but I feel like the city didn't feel like, they felt like this report was finalized, kind of, and then it was brought to them. Is there any way that you guys could sit down, work together with the facts at least of what the city thinks? And
yeah, so on that point, that is part of the process already. So the city and the two districts received administrative copies of this probably going back to March of '24. So the actual report has been vetted by city staff for multiple months. It's the recommendations, the facts that we interpreted and provided narration to that have become, a source of disagreement between your staff and City of Oceanside. I would not characterize that disagreement as being, hostile. I hear what Jonathan's saying, and I certainly understand. I hear what the mayor's saying. I think we did move the needle in that direction with the changes we made, but we're continuing to listen.
Very good.
I think it's the roadmap would help. When you start with the MSR, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. This is what the deliverable will be for you after step 3. We welcome your comments on what we've provided so far. It's just communications, it's just transparency.
Commissioner Drake has his hand raised online. Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair Whipper. Just wanted to make a comment that I appreciated Mayor Sanchez's comment, and if I understood her properly, it sounded like they had not had an update in their general plan for over 40 years. I could be wrong about that, being somewhat COVID-addled, but I think that's what she said. What strikes me about this is that's one of the purposes of an MSR is to create some punctuation in the paragraph about development to say, let's think, let's look at our consideration. One thing I want to add is we have areas near Escondido that are similar to the duck in this situation that have septic. And if you do nothing, that septic continues to contaminate the ground with bacteria for a long time. And so the sooner you can address it, the better off the public health would be. And so there are some good reasons to consider what those are. I also think that this reprises a discussion that we had maybe two and a half years ago about what should the conduct of an MSR be. And that's actually kind of a squishy answer because it's not clear what the actual outcome and results should be. And so therefore, where is the checklist that becomes an MSR's outline? And so there's a value into evaluating what should that process be, what should the public see, what should staff see from the cities to have a more explicit picture of what the results look like. I just want to echo that comment and say it's important to do that. And frankly, it's still, I think, a matter of research as to what the MSR structure should be. But at least its purpose of causing us to think about what our development process should be, especially with our neighborhood agencies. But I certainly want to thank the City of Oceanside, city manager and mayor for coming out to help be a part of the conversation. I certainly would hope that MSR steps are incremental and it causes a two-way communication and therefore a good improvement. And it's a worthwhile document. That's the end of my rant.
And a very useful rant. Thank you very much, Commissioner Drake. All right, let's go ahead. There is certain, Mayor McCann, go ahead.
Just briefly, I wanted to thank Mayor Sanchez and the city manager, Borrego, for coming. And I think one of the key points is making sure that land use should be local, and we need to be able to work together on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, there is considerable interest on the commission clearly in exploring policy L106 and the process of preparing MSRs and the pros and cons of sharing recommendations with agencies before sharing with the commission. Let's go ahead and split that out from the item that is actually in front of us today, which is the Oceanside item. But why don't we take you up on your generous offer, Mr. Simons, to come back to the commission with some points that the commission can consider around how we approach that subject. I appreciate that. To the substance of the item in front of us, just a quick question for our representatives here from Oceanside. As I understand it, the concern around, or the mischaracterization, as you phrase it, around the growth, has to do with the characterization that it is community opposition that led to the slowed growth. That's primarily the point of contention there. Okay, so I think it'd be worth considering whether we characterize it that way, whether we attribute it to community opposition, whether that needs to be in there or not. There may be reasons why we want to include that in there, but I think that that would be something worth considering. I heard an interest in mentioning that the growth should be compatible with the Oceanside General Plan, which is currently underway. So I think that would be worth looking at whether or not there is a way to incorporate that into the final product that we have. And then in terms of the study area, understanding that there is some hesitation both within Oceanside or formal opposition within Oceanside, perhaps some hesitation within Vista. I think the executive officer raises a very good point that we also need to be attentive to the needs of the residents in the dock. If we move forward with the formal public comment period, that would all occur prior to any special study area, correct? So in my opinion, it would be of value to leave that in there for the purposes of accepting formal public comment on that idea. That is the purpose of the formal public comment, and then we can identify whether or not we want to include that in the final product. The question in front of us is whether we authorize staff to proceed as planned with initiating formal public review and comment in line with preparing a final document for future action. If we are to bring back an item on policy L106, preparing MSRs, the roadmap, the communication, bring that at a later date, have staff take a look at a couple of these points that have come up, and include, the question of the study area, of course, in the formal public comment period. Is the commission good with authorizing staff to proceed with initiating the formal public review and comment in line with preparing a final document for future action?
I have a quick question.
Commissioner McKenzie.
The comments from the city of Oceanside, I've heard that we think some of them are viable. Does staff look at and anticipate making any changes to this document before it goes to the public hearing? In other words, the comment about slow growth.
Well, I think staff would benefit from the comments from the whole of everyone that we would send a notice to before committing to a particular change, but I mean, it is certainly on our mind, a change.
Well, it would seem logical to me to make that, communications, and yes, we can do this. We understand where you're coming from on the slow growth, and that's the one I'm just picking out. And that may be the only one of the, 10 items, or there may be 3. So the question is, do we want to hash this back out at a public hearing, or do you want to have additional communications now and make those changes?
Respectfully, I would ask that you would allow your executive officer time to digest what is being discussed. Allow me to send this item as it is today out for public review and comment, and work with the affected agencies and others who may comment over the next 45 days in bringing you back a document, presumably that will have revisions, but rather than to do it on the fly here, that would be my recommendation to the commission.
Okay. And then that would, at the end of the day, so what I'm hearing is that your preference is to put it out for public comment, taking into consideration the commissioner comment, folding all that into a document that you would bring back to the commission after that public comment period.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that acceptable to the commission? Any objections? I'm not hearing any objections, so do we need a motion on that? Yes. Okay, we do need a motion. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Anderson. I'll go ahead and second that motion. So the motion is to authorize staff to proceed as planned with initiating formal public review and comment in line with preparing a final document for future action. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis, Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
There are 7 in favor, 0 opposed, with 1 absent. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. Very much appreciate all the valuable comment that we got from the commissioners, the Oceanside officials, and others on this item. And I know that the executive officer will be considering all of those points as we put this out to public comment and prepare a final document. All right, let's move on to item 6B. That is the appointment of an alternate public member and related actions. Do we have a presentation on this item, or would you like me to run through? Okay, so let me start by thanking Vice Chair Willis and Commissioner White for serving on the recruitment committee, and to Priscilla for helping to coordinate the process. Really appreciate the efforts of all 3 of you in this. You will recall that with Commissioner Mathis now in a regular seat, we have an opening for the unexpired term of a public member alternate seat. We publicized the opening. We received 8 applications, and after a couple of meetings and discussion, the recruitment committee unanimously recommends that the commission appoint Bridget Browning to the vacant alternate seat. A copy of Ms. Browning's letter of interest and professional resume were included in the agenda packet. Ms. Browning is here, and I would invite her to say a few words to the commission, and she's also available to answer any questions. Thank you, Ms. Browning, for being here, and the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning. So nice to see you all, and thank you for inviting me up, Chairman Whitburn. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a native San Diego. I currently live in Chula Vista with my 2 children, or my 2 dogs, cat. We've got a very full house. I've worked in the labor movement since I graduated college. I started with Unite Here, which is the hotel workers union. It's principally low-wage immigrant workers. I think we've done a lot to make tourism jobs better jobs. When I first started, they were very low paying and people really lived in poverty. I'm very passionate about rebuilding the middle class. I'm currently am the head of the Labor Council. So if you have any idea what it's like to work with various unions, whether they're public unions like teachers and firefighters, or private unions like iron workers and grocery store workers, it's not the easiest to get everybody to move in the same direction. So I think I have a lot of skills at trying to find consensus. I also have, I think, some important relationships with the port, which hasn't had a great relationship with you all. So I'm hoping that perhaps I could be a bridge builder to kind of tamper things down a bit and have a reset. So I'm really excited that you're considering me, and I'm open to any questions you have. I was asked what my passion is. I have to say it's the Libby app, the library app. If you don't have it, I'm happy to show you how it works. It's amazing. If you get both the county library card and your city's library card, you get access to like millions of titles. Very amazing.
Thank you very much, Ms. Browning. All right, this is a public hearing item. So aside from Vice Chair Willis and Commissioner White and myself who interviewed Ms. Browning, are there any commissioner disclosures of ex parte communications? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open the hearing and take public comment on this item if there is any. First of all, Clerk, do we have any online public comment on this item?
None.
Okay, then let's open it up for commission discussion, and we will invite any comments or questions of Ms. Browning. The recommendation before us is to appoint Bridget Browning as the alternate public member to an existing 4-year term, commencing immediately and terming on the first Monday of April 2027, and also to dissolve the recruitment committee. Any commissioner comments or questions? Vice Chair Willis.
I will just make a motion that we do appoint Bridget Browning to the position.
Thank you, Vice Chair Willis. Commissioner Becker.
Yes, I'll go ahead and second that. You're obviously overqualified for our board here today, but I did want to make the comment, and first of all, thank you three for all the work that you did on this, on the subcommittee, but I guess I was kind of thinking that with 8 applicants, it might be, like a better idea to maybe bring 2 or 3 back to the commission so that we could all sort of see what went on. I understand if there's maybe 3 candidates, of course, that would be the subcommittee's job, really narrow that down. But just looking at, 8 candidates and here you've brought 1 is just sort of leaves some transparency, I think. The public hasn't gotten to see what was out there. So I guess in the future, if maybe we have a subcommittee, maybe that's kind of an idea to kind of let the commission decide a little bit more. Than this felt a little bit like the subcommittee decided, and we didn't really get to look at anything else. And that's no offense to you, because obviously you're qualified. And so happy to have you. So just with those comments, I had seconded the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Becker, and your point is well taken. In fact, that was the plan. The ad hoc committee reviewed the 8 applications and advanced 2 of the applicants to the interview stage. And the intent was actually to interview both of the candidates and bring both of the candidates forward to the commission. Unfortunately, on the day of the interview, one of the applicants had to withdraw. Was unavailable for the interview due to a health problem. And in light of that, we decided to go ahead and move forward with the candidate who was available to be interviewed. But your point is well taken, and as we do this in the future, we'll try to create a situation where there is more than one candidate that comes before the commission, because I think we all agree that would be ideal. Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Commissioner McCann.
Just wanted to thank you. It'd be great to have another person from the city of Chula Vista.
We can carpool.
Very good. Commissioner Mathis, yes, you have your hand up.
I certainly have nothing against the candidate, and I'm sure she'd make a very good member. The only concern I have is that she's so deeply embedded in the labor union. She comes from a perspective that is, very contained. And I think the only reservation I have is that, and I might ask her this question, is to, as the public member, you represent the public. And can you set the labor movement aside in terms of that representation without any reservation?
Yes, I'm actually a board member of our pension where I have to do that. I have to take the fiduciary responsibility as the highest governing principle, not the membership. So I'm very used to those roles, and that would not be an issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Mathis. Any further commission discussion? Seeing none, the motion in front of us is to appoint Bridget Browning as the alternate public member and also to dissolve the recruitment committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
So there are 7 in favor, 0 opposed, with 1 absent. The motion passes.
Thank you very much, Clerk. Congratulations, Commissioner Browning.
Welcome aboard, Bridget.
So we do have an oath of office that the clerk will administer as you make your way to the dais. And we're going to take a photo too. Yes.
Please raise your right hand. This is the oath for the office of Commissioner with the San Diego County Local Agency Formation Commission. So do you, Bridget Browning, solemnly affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of Commissioner with the San Diego County Local Agency for Ocean Commission.
Taking the picture?
We have it, and it will be going on social media before you know it.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome. Glad to have you joining us. And pleased that today's discussion so far hasn't dissuaded you from joining our commission. All right. Well, moving on to our business calendar. Item 7A is a proposed update to the rolling 5-year study schedule, and we will invite staff to present this item.
Thank you, Chair Whitburn, and Commissioners Priscilla Mumpower, Assistant Executive Officer on behalf of LAFCO staff. So before the Commission is a proposed update to its rolling 5-year study schedule. The update comes to the Commission as part of an annual process to sync the study schedule with the adopted work plan. Commission, you'll recall that staff brought this item to you as part of the November 2023 meeting, wherein the Commission approved, among other items, implementation of a 5-year rolling study schedule, and in doing so, replacing the fixed 5-year study schedule. So that action pertinently allows the Commission to focus the first 2 years of the rolling study schedule on authorized municipal service reviews, meaning those that have been approved and calendared as part of your adopted work plan. And in doing so, providing flexibility in pacing the work of the MSRs while also accommodating agencies' resources and abilities to participate in the data collection and review process. It also then allows the 3rd, 4th, and 5th years to act as a telegraphing tool to other affected agencies and interested stakeholders with respect to the Commission's expectation to initiate those municipal service reviews in the future. So with this context in mind, the proposed update before you markedly resets the 5-year calendar in preparing municipal service reviews and any related sphere of influence updates to reflect the recently adopted work plan for fiscal year 24-25. So I'm going to put up on the screen the first 2 years of the proposed update, which you'll know remains largely intact from what you received in November, with just a couple of exceptions. And the first being and involving Commission direction to add and prioritize a previously unscheduled municipal service review on Sandag. So you'll see that in the right column on the very bottom there. Other changes are limited to simply reorganizing previously scheduled regional studies by combining regions, but then also separating them into parts. And those would be covered to focus in on cities, and then the second part to focus in on special districts. So I'll give the Commission a second to just absorb that as we have combined, for example, Carlsbad and Encinitas, Del Mar and Solana Beach, and the Central 78 Corridor region. So now changes to the balance or remaining 3 years of the study schedule, again, these being those municipal service reviews that are serving as a telegraphing tool. Those include adding new municipal service reviews on the San Diego Metropolitan Transit System and San Diego airports in the 3rd and 5th year, respectively. And these are shown on this screen here. So with that, Commission, those are the changes that have occurred to the proposed update, and staff is recommending approval. With that, I conclude my presentation. Available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mumpower. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
I don't have any registered public comment, but I do see online that we have a caller that has their hand raised. They would like to speak to this item.
Hello. Hey, Keen, it's Joe Naaman.
Hi, Joe.
Team, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Joe Naaman, and first of all, if I'm complaining, you have the right to complain that I'm 3 years delinquent, and thanking you. In 2021, when Julian's weekly newspaper ceased publication because of the publisher's health problems, I wrote a feasibility report on what a new Julian newspaper would need, including what agencies needed to be covered. So belatedly, I thank you for LAFCO's comprehensive special districts directory, if we can call it that. And I wrote 5 public water districts provide service in Greater Julian, the Cane-Brake County Water District, the Cuyamaca Water District, the Julian Community Services District, the Majestic Pines Community Service District, and the Wynola Water District. Julian is now within the San Diego County Water Authority boundaries. The special districts in Greater Julian also include the Lake Cuyamaca and Park and Recreation District. I see Cane-Brake on the schedule. I don't see the other 4 Julian water districts or the Park District. Also, in 2022, I wrote about the MSR and sphere of influence updates for the Fallbrook Public Utility District, the Rainbow Municipal Water District, County Service Area 81, and North County Fire Protection District. So I know 5 years is a guideline, not a mandate, but I was wondering when the other 4 Julian water districts, the Lake Cuyamaca Park and Recreation District, and the Fallbrook agencies are going to be considered on the schedule.
So through the chair, the question, nice to hear you, Joe. It has been a while, is if you look at the proposed year 28-29 study schedule, which would be the 5th and final year of this current glimpse out into the future, which is page 329 on the packet. We've identified Cane-Brake Water District, which is out in the Julian-ish kind of Julian area. But there are other special districts, Julian Community Services District being the most sizable one that we have not listed in this document. And that is because, Commission, we did just a few years ago cover them as part of our Julian Municipal Service Review. So we feel like we've checked that box. But to the question that Joe has asked, well, when will we go back to that Julian area? Most likely not until fiscal year 30. At least that's how this study schedule works. If we get everything done by 29 as we've envisioned, which would be a huge win, then we kind of restart the clock and we go back to looking at agencies that we have previously covered. So that's the expectation.
Thank you, Mr. Simons, and thank you for the public comment. Seeing no additional public comment on this item, let's turn to commission discussion, and we'll begin with Commissioner McKenzie.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a great document, and I think it's a great tool for the LAFCO commissioners to be apprised of on a regular basis. So my question, and I've talked to our CEO about it, is that this be included in our packet as a business item so that we have this in front of us all the time, and include the F5, which is a consent calendar, and it basically tells you where you're at on these various MSRs. I think this is a great tool for this commission to be apprised of. And then it allows us to ask any questions about where and when, too. And I'll ask one question. On the Carlsbad and Encinitas region, you have the city of Carlsbad, and when I go back to F5, it's number 5 on the hit parade, but yet the city of Encinitas and San Diego Water District, they're number 17. So are we going to do this later on, or is this going to be up front?
So,
Just,
yeah, through the chair. So, your adopted work plan sets the priority numbers, and it does draw on your study schedule. But the work plan is the directive to staff. So, in that case, we follow in order the resources and apply them 1, 2, 3, 4 in the work plan. So, we haven't necessarily synced the work plan, the study schedule as we've outlined them here, but we certainly can, and I do think the suggestion from Commissioner McKenzie is a good one. So going forward, with the syncing, we will start including a copy of the study schedule, perhaps as an attachment to our work plan update. And as Commissioner McKenzie noted, that does then allow you to, on the agenda, ask about the studies that are beyond the work plan, but let's say scheduled down the road. So, wonderful suggestion.
If that works for the rest of the commission, that would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. Thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. Any further commission comment on this item?
I have a question.
Yes, Vice Chair Willis.
Where do we stand with the MSR for the Water Authority?
Have Chris here too.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
So where do we stand with the MSR for the Water Authority?
So we are still in the data collection phase. Chris has been a wonderful asset to the data collection phase, and if he has an update, I will defer to him.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla, and thank you, Commissioner. So currently we have engaged with Dr. Hanneman to assist in drafting the MSR. We have developed a scope of work that we are working through, and we have organized a set of stakeholders through the Water Authority that have met a couple times now to discuss various elements of that scope of work, and we'll continue to meet with them as a working group until we finalize a draft that will be presented hopefully by the end of this calendar year is the current timeline.
So the timeline is by the end of the year?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Willis. All right, seeing no further commissioner comment, the proposed action is to approve the proposed update to the rolling 5-year study schedule. I'll go ahead and, would you like to make the motion, Vice Chair Willis? All right, we have a motion from Vice Chair Willis. I'm happy to second that. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
There are 7 in favor, 0 opposed, with 1 absent. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. Let's move to item 8, which is the Executive Officer Report.
Thank you, Chair. So a couple of items to report on. Stephen Abbott, who at one time was the fire chief for North County Fire Protection District and then joined us as our consultant on fire services, is doing a second retirement. So we wish Stephen well in his second or his third to come act. But that, of course, means we're going to be on the lookout for a new consultant that can help us with our fire service issues. So more to come on that end. I want to congratulate Commissioner McKenzie for being reelected to the CSDA board representing Southern California. Very impressive, and I think this is your 5th winning term. So congratulations, Ms. McKenzie. And then we have some staff things to note. So Commission Clerk Erica Sellen has come back as a champion now with a newborn baby. So we welcome Erica's return. We also, very well. And then also we have a new employee here, Megan Trainer, who has joined us from UC San Diego, just like Commissioner Browning and Commissioner Willis. And then also most recently worked for Councilmember Kent Lee's office with Commissioner Whitburn at the City of San Diego. And we anticipate probably as early as next meeting you'll hear more from Megan, but we're very happy to have her aboard. And then last but not least, I'm going to ask Priscilla to do, or Michaela, an update on SALT 2.0 and the open house.
So we had an open house at the San Diego County Farm Bureau back, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now. So we had producers come and get an update on SALC 2.0. We also provided information from SALC 1.0. We had our consultant from Agricultural Impact Associates provide how we were planning to collect data. He also went to a couple farms and got some information from producers firsthand, which was awesome. And just collected any other qualitative information from producers that they would have liked to provide for the study. So that's exciting.
Thank you, Michaela. And I want to extend my appreciation to Commissioner Willis, who was able to make it up to Escondido, and also to the San Diego County Farm Bureau, who allowed us to host the event in their facilities. So with that, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I do want to piggyback on that.
Yes, Vice Chair Willis.
On Friday, I was able to meet with three, and actually four, in the farm industry up there in Escondido. Eddie Grangetto, Rick Carey, Craig, I don't butcher his last name, Craig Kaloji. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Did I get it right? Kaloji, okay. And Kevin Grangetto, who's Eddie's brother, obviously. Spent about a couple hours with them, and we focused on the practical application of what could help them. Items such as help writing grants, and just overall to focus on helping the farmers up there. And our part of our charter through Cortez Knox Hertzberg is the definition of course, is to not only orderly formation of local government agencies, but also to preserve agricultural and open space lands. So I think to make it I'm concerned now that we do continue to make it a priority to preserve this agricultural land by helping the farmers as much as we possibly can. And that's through outside consultants, help with writing grants, to maybe seed money from the grant to help them, just to make it a very high. I would like to put it on our website, We Love Farmers, if we could do that. That's where I feel how high of a priority they are to me now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Willis. Are there any other commissioner announcements or requests for future items? Seeing none, our next item, item 10, is a closed session conference with legal counsel. Clerk, before we move into closed session, is there any public comment on the closed session item?
I don't have any emails, but I do have Deanne Gillick has her hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, I just raised my hand as special counsel for this item so that I would be moved with you to closed session and you knew I was here. And just the commission will be meeting in closed session as the items as they appear on the agenda for any formal announcement.
Very good. Thank you. All right. At this time, the commission will move into closed session. All right. We have concluded our closed session. We are now back in open session. And our closed session concluded with no reportable action. That concludes our business for today, and today's meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.